Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Kate Hudson Hall, and thank you for listening to Bulimia Sucks. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable and uplifting and inspiring conversations based on bulimia and anorexia and other eating disorders. And these are real stories from people who are suffering or have suffered an eating disorders. And episodes will include their personal stories of where they are now and their difficult journeys and their steps taken into recovery. But also, we talk to professionals who work with people with an eating disorder. Now, my book, Bulimia Sucks, the audiobook, is now live on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And if you'll be interested in like a free copy of this, then email me at katehudsonhall@gmail.com and I can send you the code so you can download it for free. And also our Patreon platform is now live. And so for those of you who don't know what Patreon is, it's a way for our listeners to support us financially and allow us to continue creating content and helping people who are struggling with eating disorders. So to support us, if you go to patreon.com/Bulimia Sucks, and then you'll find out more details there. Now, I'm very excited. Our guest today is Mia Powell. Now, Mia is a registered neuro-linguistic psychotherapist and accredited clinical hypnotherapist, and she's based in the UK, in Cheshire. And she specializes in results-driven therapy and counseling for conditions such as anxiety and eating disorders, which she is going to be talking to us more about today. And she combines NLP, neuro-linguistic programming training, with psychological training to help her eating disorders clients deal with the issues that they're having a negative impact on their life. Excuse me, so they can achieve long-lasting change. She also draws on other approaches, including CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, Schema Therapy, humanistic therapies, reiki healing, and third wave methods such as mindfulness and compassion approach therapy. Now, she is here today, and I'm very excited now to welcome Mia. So thank you so much for joining us, Mia. This is great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Kate. It's wonderful to be here with you and with everybody who's listening to us. And I hope we can, at the end of our talk, we can really get people motivated and excited to start a new journey, or be happy with where they are on the journey and be motivated to carry on. So yeah, really excited.
Oh, I love that. Yes, what we want is motivation. Okay, so you were telling me earlier that you were in the Russian ballet. And so that must have been really interesting or insightful with regards to eating disorders.
Well, it never starts with that. If you get into the ballet at a very early age, this is becoming what you know. So what for us here seems as a eating disorder, or the potential to develop one because of the, well, draconic training you are going through. When you start, it is a way of life. And as you know, children develop following models. So for us as children, as we grew up doing ballet, not eating as much as maybe a normal child would eat, or anyway, children don't eat naturally much because they eat when they're hungry. You don't necessarily think you are going to develop that. But then with the ballet, there is a lot of competition. And then you see those, excuse me, those models you have to follow to fit into maybe prima ballerina role, and for this reason, you start reducing your food because you want to compete with others. So it's through comparing with other girls, then you stop eating. So it was like let's say, a national fashion not to eat as much as you were. Even when you're hungry, you'd not follow your body. So that would lead to probably feeling hungry most of the time. And when the body feels hungry, you can't necessarily perform as good as you could. So then I would dance if, let's say, I broke an ankle or sprained an ankle, because my bones probably weren't going to be as strong as anybody else's. I would carry on dancing. So the pressure was tremendous from that point of view. So by the time I finished ballet around the age of 17, I sprained my ankles about 300 times at least.
300? Oh my gosh.
Yes. So, well, you can see there is a certain, deformed bone around the ankle. So, but the body recovered because obviously when I finished dancing, I was one of the lucky people not to go into developing a eating disorder, but it left me with a reflective nature and made me realize how much actually we can do for people who grow up like that. And that's what made me actually go into psychology and psychotherapy later, to be able
Really?
to help people like, not necessarily like me, but who don't know any different. And their body image is what leads them to make decisions in life. And sometimes when you make decisions based on how you think you are perceived, you are not in control of those decisions. You let other people, other situations to control your decisions.
Yes.
They are the ones who dictate you how to eat, how to think, how to live. And that can be very damaging. But that's only one of
Yeah, that's one sort of avenue to it. But the poor girls that, with that pressure of looking perfect, weights, with regards to their weight and the competition of that, how do they ever perform if they're reducing their foods, they're not eating properly, and they have, and all that training and
now. This is a very, very interesting question and good question for people to understand, because so what happens, this is specific for people who do sports as well. And I will relate to basically the neurobiology of our brains, what happens in our brains when we are in high demanding situations in life. So when, for instance, we are under pressure and we have to perform, either we are at a marathon or we have to run to get the prize, what happens? Our brains go into fight and flee response. So we get into a high alert state when the brain says, hold on, now it's like I have to run or I have to survive. It's a survival mode. And then everything gets shut down. So even if you are hungry, even if you are scared, even if you are traumatized, your body shuts down. So all there is at a maximum potential is that ability to go over your weakness. So for instance, you heard of mothers who, if the child is under a truck in fire or whatever, they have the power to actually lift something 100 times bigger than their weight, because that's the brain saying, hold on, we are in big trouble here. We have to escape, we have to survive. And then a power that's never been known to us comes out, and then everything gets shut down because it's stress. So our reaction to stress is imaginable how powerful our brains are. So everything shuts down, and then you act. So this is how they acted in ballet as well. This is how sports people act, because they think of the prize. So when you think of the end line of the prize of what's coming, everything else becomes invisible. You think, I will win. I will be on that stage. I'm not hungry anymore because I will be seen. I will be admired. I will be the first. I will be in the papers. Or an athlete thinks, if I win, if I get the gold, I achieve what I fought for. Everybody will be proud of me.
Yeah.
It's the same with eating disorders. When people are in big stressor mode, then they think, let's say in episodes with bulimia, when they start eating, it's the end result. They think, once I eat, I feel so happy. I'm in control. And that's all they think. Everything else shuts down,
Yes.
and the brain goes into, I have to do it quick. It's life and death to feel that emptiness, to get over, because when you eat a certain amount of food, what happens? You go into a state of feeling safe. What was stressing you, vanishing, because you replaced it with a comfort, a cocoon.
Yeah. So you're striving to get that good feeling.
So that's the modality that we use. And that's how the brain, this is the explanation of the brain, what's happening in those moments.
Yeah. Amazing. Gosh.
So it's what happens is you replace the stressor, what's stressing you. And in eating disorders, what people are trying, either they don't eat or eat, what they are trying to feel is either something that's very traumatizing and they don't want to remember it. It's a stressor. It's such a big element of stress, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. But if I put something else, which is food, and what does to the brain, the food, it actually alleviates the trauma, the fear response.
Yeah.
And then as you eat, you have those hormones of, you have the adrenaline fixing, you have the peace going, the happiness inside of your body. And for a second, for an hour, you are back to a state of, back to the safety net.
Yes.
After that finishes, you go back to where you were because you think, I must be a very bad person.
All that shame and guilt comes in about what you've just done and all those horrific feelings.
It is, but then if you ask the person, what is the guilt about? You will find that a lot of people don't remember because the guilt has been so stretched over years and years. It's become part of them. It's like a pattern, and you don't remember anymore where you started. It's impossible because the memories, your brain, what it does to protect you, it's put like a blanket of safety. And you don't remember what it is. You remember just the pattern.
Yes.
Habit. That's why it's so important when you work with people with eating disorders to have a lot of compassion and care, to start going back, going
Yeah,
back.
absolutely. When I work with, working as a therapist, when I work with my eating disorders clients, I inquire, I question, what happened in their past and other different areas about their past. And quite often they don't know because of that whole pattern that you're just talking about. Consciously, they don't know.
It is consciously, but then this is because unconsciously it would be too painful, because once you get one layer of the onion, then you can find a lot of stuff coming out, and then they even forgotten that because it makes no sense. And then you're going back to their past, you might find out that it's not related to an eating disorder. Eating disorder is one way, an outcome of how the trauma developed.
Yes.
And some early
How
trauma.
they deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By attacking their bodies.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're in the depths of an eating disorder, none of it kind of makes sense why you behave that way unless you sort of have that support and that help from somebody like yourself to be able to guide you.
And also, you see, eating disorders are a way of punishing your past through your body. So you punish, you want to revenge, you want you want to put a barrier between you and your past through your body, because the body is something that you see, but it's something that nobody else is seeing it. Because if you become a serial killer, everybody will see it. But usually people who develop eating disorders are very compassionate people and very caring with others.
Oh, yes. And they forget about themselves.
And then if they do it to themselves, it's not something that anybody can see. So they are so caring and loving. And you'll see they would do anything for other people. They will sacrifice themselves, but not for them. And this is what, if you turn the attention to them, they will think it's not worth it. And that's where you have to do the work to bring them back to themselves. and find out why they run out, who hurt them so much to make them hate themselves so much. Who do they want to punish? The little girl or the father that did something? Or you see, who are they turning against? Do they try to kill the person who hurt them, or to revenge? Or there is something that triggered that episode that turned into that. Or it can be even running away from something that stresses them every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I had my eating disorder, so for 15 years I had bulimia and anorexia, I'd had all sorts of different traumas that had happened throughout my life before. And I was abused as a child. Well, I didn't talk about that until that was when I was 7 or 8. And then I didn't actually talk about it till I started to get over my eating disorder and address it, until I was in my late 20s. I just buried it. Total denial.
And that was the best way for your system to
At that time.
Yes. And it protected you until you felt ready. And that was the best way, you see. One of my clients that actually had the same story with an abuse early in life, as a teenager, blanked it immediately because he was the shame to say it to the parents, religion in the way and all these barriers. And she started eating, and she became obese at a very early age, 17, and she would dress in a way that would make her very, very unattractive to all the people, of course. And she was not worth it of having, long hair. She loved long hair, but she had it short. So when we started working together, and we worked through hypnotherapy as well, and schema therapy. And schema therapy is great for eating disorder because it addresses an issue from many points of view. He works on a cognitive level, so he addresses their beliefs, what they think. He addresses the behavior, why they act the way they act, but emotionally as well. So he goes to what you feel and how what you do makes you feel. And then he works on what is called reparenting. So the therapist becomes a sort of a parent, and you develop a very close relationship with a therapist, and that becomes your first supporter in the process. So when we worked with this young lady, she admitted that the way she felt when she was eating was making her feel safe from any attacks. So she grew up thinking all the men are potential abusers.
Yeah.
So her body, so she sent commands to her brain saying, we are in danger. So the brain says, okay, we're getting this cortisol. High, when you're high on cortisol, it's like, all right, I'm hyper vigilant. Now I'm in danger. So now we have to create some mechanisms of making this person very safe.
Yeah, so to protect them.
Yeah, so the brain started saying, you have to eat a lot. You have to eat a lot all the time. And the bigger you are, the safer you are.
Oh, yes. This is quite a common issue, I believe, with my clients, with all sorts of eating disorders.
And you see what happens if they feel safe. The only way to break the patterns is to make them change at cognitive level, to rearrange their beliefs, to look around and ask them, is the world the same place like it was when you had the episode, when you have been abused? And when we spoke like that, she says, well, no. They actually, as a young adult, they say, no, it's not the same place. I have friends. There are good parts in the world. I have good friends, male friends that are not like that. And would you like to have a boyfriend like that, for instance? Well, very much so. So you let them little by little take in new elements that I actually feel safe in the world. So you have to talk them to the younger self to address this problem. And they have to heal that person themselves. They have the ability to say, well, you are a little girl, you've been through a lot of trauma, but it's not the same now. We are better now, come with me. You'll see it gets better. And then once they learn how to let go of that fear, the brain is getting the new signals. Oh, hold on. Now I can turn the hot water, because it's like a hot water tap. I can turn it back and cold water is running and I can relax. Okay. And then the weight can be let go.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful process, healing. But it starts with the person coming back on the driver's seat and start turning the taps, which will affect their master brain. And they will start being in control and say, I can be in control. I can turn the tap from hot, because when you are in a high level of stress, it's like, imagine when you're running a bath and you're in the bath and then you want a bath to be, comfortable, and turn the hot water, and when it's too hot, you put cold water. Now, when we are living with people who live with eating disorders or other traumas, the hot water is on high all the time, and then they are in constant alert. I'm in danger, and it's very difficult. At some point, what happens, your brain will say, I've had enough, I'm shutting down. And then if you are on the other spectrum of the eating disorders with anorexia, if you're pushing too far, your organs say, I've had enough, I can't do anything, this is a lost case. And we have cases of death, and it can be very tragic. That's why it's so important to motivate these people and say, love yourself, give yourself the chance to find out how you can be in control and be, have a very nice bath.
Yes. The right temperature for you.
You can be the one who arranges the temperature. So
yeah, that's a great way to explain it. And how would you, maybe we can move on and talk a bit about beliefs. You were talking about people's beliefs. How would you explain what beliefs are to people and work with them?
Now, this is a really excellent question, because beliefs are those core foundations that we form since we are born, since we are, toddlers. And
we develop them when we're young, don't we? And we don't realize we're doing it.
We even develop them when we are in the womb, because you are getting used to a certain music that the mother is putting through, her. We learn since we are in the womb, and that's what science actually tells us. So that's why the prenatal development of the fetus is quite essential. How the mother is loving her pregnancy and what she does, her digestive beliefs, and how she actually lives with the fetus is important. And after we are born, everything that we see around, smell, touch, model, is what influences our beliefs.
Absolutely. And there's so many different types of negative limiting beliefs that people can have, isn't there?
Well, in neuro-linguistic programming, this is a core foundation in working with people, negative beliefs and how you rewire them, and to make people identify what's negative. Because when you live with those beliefs for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, how would you know they're wrong? Because that's all you knew, and that's all you know. So one of my clients, he's now in his 60s, and when he was, this is quite a famous case I've worked with, when he was, and it's a public story, so it's his story is published on various websites. When he was at the age of 10, he saw his mother being killed in front of him as he was waiting for her to pick him from school.
Oh my gosh.
This was, I don't know if we can imagine anything more traumatizing than this. So he grew up with this, and he did a fantastic job. But when he got to the age of 30, his wife, with his youngest daughter, left him. And he became quite a successful business person. And that was the second traumatizing event. And she left without saying anything and explaining. She left to someone else. And since then, since the age of 30 up to now, his whole world turned upside down twice. And he developed a very, very difficult skin condition, psoriasis. And when we started working together, it was very difficult to go through the belief system that all women were going to leave him, his mother, his wife, his children. And it was because he wanted. When you want to be helped, that you say, okay, I want to see the things differently. And I think the role of the therapist is essential in this, because you have to be, as a parent, but also have an empathic confrontation power, because you have to confront them. They come to you to be shaken up as well, to say, okay, this is what you can have. I can be there for you, but you have to go through some suffering, maybe a little bit. It's not going to be easy to let go of that past.
Yes.
But, and you see, it has to come from people. They have to identify how would he want it to be. So how we worked with this individual is, we know people are capable of knowing what they want. And they usually say, well, I want to be happy and I want to be in a relationship. So we made some goals for this relationship. Now, in order for this relationship to be successful, you need to make some changes. It's either a relationship with food, because that's a relationship, and this is a belief. What's your relationship with food? So then it's not only the relationship is with a woman or with a man or with whoever, but with food. So in neuro-linguistic, you do this exercise and you imagine the person or the object you want to have a relationship with, and you change roles. So for instance, in our case would be, what does the food think about you as a person? How does the food see you? And it'd be very interesting. Some people think, well, the food thinks I'm useless because I can't stop eating it. And then you put the person on the other role. What do you think about food? Well, I think the food is my friend. Why is your friend? And then you go deeper and deeper and find out what's actually at the root of that friendship, what the benefits. But then you find out that at the end of it, people say, well, it makes me forget. And then that gives you a way of going deeper. It makes you forget about what? It makes me forget about, let's say, the day I had, but what day did you have? What was the worst about that day? And then you find out something that is a pattern. Either somebody said something that put them down, or let's say the boss. We have cases where the boss said, do that, and this is something that I really hate doing, but I have to do it because I'm worried I might lose that. And if I lose that, then I can't support my family. And I can't do that, or I'm not a good partner if I don't do that.
Yeah. Or, I suppose another limiting belief that could come in there is that if I lose my job, then it'll confirm that I'm unworthy, because unworthy is a very common limiting belief, isn't it? And for people that don't know, there's many, many different types of difficult limiting beliefs that people have about themselves. For example, I must be in control, or I'm a failure, or I'm helpless or hopeless. There's so many different ones. It's unbearable if I don't have love. I'm unlovable.
See, usually with these limiting beliefs, we also have to be careful, because they are compensating, always compensating for something. So somebody, when they say, I want to be in control, the question we ask, because they are very often, what would happen if you lost control? So you go on the other side. Well, if I lost control, I'm vulnerable. Okay, and what's wrong with being vulnerable? Oh, and they can take advantage of me. And you have to always reach on the core of the problem. And who takes advantage of you? And then you give them the opportunity to go to what actually happened. Well, is it an event that you can think of? Because when people are triggered emotionally, what happens? They see images immediately. And images are very emotionally charged. So
Absolutely. And a lot of people aren't aware that they actually have pictures in their heads. They have images that run through their heads, but they're all there, coming up, flashing around in your mind.
Always. And we see them or we hear them. If you are an auditive type, you hear them or you see them, or you can even smell them. We are, all our bodies are like sat navs, and we pick up on everything. We just have to be in the area and we pick up immediately.
Yeah.
So it's very important to find out when they say, like, I want to be in control, I'm unlovable. But how would it be, in your opinion, to be lovable? And then they give you an insight of how actually see the world. Because as a therapist, you have to go into their model of the world, in their map. Is their ontology that serves us like a map. If we don't understand how they see the world, we can't help them. So we have to, in a way, you have to be as fresh as a blank canvas when you work with someone, and forget your own biases that we all of us have, and see the world through their eyes and feel it and smell it how they do, so you can actually walk in their shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. Fascinating.
There is little more interesting than human beings in our work.
Yeah.
I've worked with people for over 10 years, and I don't find anything more interesting and more passionate to be around and work with people.
Absolutely, because everybody's different.
Yes.
And has had just different experiences throughout their lives that have molded them into where they are at that particular moment.
And it's, once you work with someone who really wants to be helped, half of the process is done, because you form a very close relationship with that person, and you actually walk with them and you inspire them and motivate them that they can become who they always wanted to be in, and they feel in the back of their minds, because everybody knows what they would like to be and have.
Yes.
They just have to let go of the fear, because it's always a fear. What if I do it wrong? Because they compare. What if it's wrong? What if I am judged? What if I am not good enough?
Yeah.
And we have to identify good enough for who, because sometimes it's a lot of illusions around there. There isn't anybody there with a, with a baseball waiting to kill them, or nobody. There is no other judge but ourselves.
Yes, and for many, it's not a very nice judgment. We can be so harsh on ourselves, extremely harsh, and speak to ourselves, in such a horrific way. We wouldn't speak to our friends or anyone that we don't even like. We wouldn't be so nasty to them.
And you see, I think this is a very important thing with trauma. When you go through trauma, your body feels that it's been violated. If it's an abuse, if it's psychological, your whole system feels it's been abused, because it's an abuse to your health, to your balance. And then what happens if it's not dealt with? This feeling grows into feeling disgusted and feeling not worthy. That's how it grows. And then when people start forming relationships with others, they will always have this desire to be loved, but they won't be able to love because they feel bad about themselves, and they will want that love to be offered to them, but they won't be able to love the other person because they will always feel I'm not good enough. And then they will cause problems, as in, oh, you don't love me enough. They will have issues with weak confidence. And then the couple will not survive because it's not healthy. When you constantly ask for love, but you don't love yourself, you're not able to love in a free way, in a healthy adult way. You'll always want to be loved, but you don't know how to be independent.
Yeah, and you always want that reassurance. Yeah.
So that's what we teach people first. To have that relationship, you have to develop a relationship with yourself and go through forgiveness, with valuing who you are and smiling and loving yourself. And then what happened with my client with psoriasis, after we did all the work, we worked together probably for maybe 8 months at the beginning, until he developed a smile. And he came one day and said, people today said to me that I have a different smile. And how did you feel about that? I said, I felt really good. I didn't think it was possible to ever get a compliment. And that was the first breakthrough. And after that, the relationship came, and some of the psoriasis disappeared on big chunks on the legs and back. So it is possible.
Yes.
But before we think of getting into relationships, we have to resolve the big relationships with the food, with ourselves, with our stressors, with our aggressors. And I really encourage people to not feel ashamed. When you go through things like that, either you're living with, abuse or any trauma, this is not a shame. This is part of life, and we can turn it into really, really advantages and benefits, and can change people into becoming, psychotherapists, counselors, anything.
Whatever
It's
they want to be.
whatever they want to be.
Yeah.
And free from the past, because past should not stop us from living in the present. We should be
back. Yeah.
future. So we should use the past only to, have nice memories, and we decide what we keep, but not to go back to be traumatized again. Past is not for that. That's why we say past is gone. We don't have eyes on the back, If evolution and the universe would have given us eyes on the back to look in the past, but our eyes are in the future, ahead. So that should give us an insight. Naturally, we are formed to look ahead. I haven't seen any creature with eyes on their backs, unless you're an octopus, I suppose. And you can see sideways.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is amazing. So is there anything else that you'd like to add, Mia?
Probably as a final thought, I would say, whatever the trauma, whatever the things that are holding people back, they should always speak to a professional. Friends are wonderful, but friends are not, because they are attached emotionally to the person, they are not able to give professional opinions, and they would always say, oh, it's okay, you'll be fine. But the first point of contact would be to speak to a professional, and think about how much you're missing if you don't address it. It's good to feel sorry for yourself for a while and feel the center of attention and feel nobody loves you. It feels good for a while. That's the truth. Otherwise, you wouldn't feel it. It gives you a benefit. But in the long run, it's not worth it. There are so many things people could explore if they have the freedom to say, I look brilliant. I love who I am. I want my life to be a dream, not a nightmare. So I encourage people to speak to professionals if they go through any traumas that hold them back, and not leave it, not make it, it's not that important, I can live with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the first port of call, isn't it? Reaching out
without shame, I feel really proud when somebody contacts me. Really proud. I think, what a brave heart.
Yes.
This is fantastic. And these are the people who say, it's something that bothers me. I'm in control. I don't want that to bother me anymore. I want to make decisions and help others. I don't want to be a victim. It's not good. It sucks, like you say.
Absolutely. And it is a huge step, reaching out, but it's having the courage, and people can do that.
Yes.
Look ahead, look into your future, and you can take that little step to reach out to somebody. to a friend, family member, or a therapist, whatever.
And probably there is another thought that sometimes people say, how do you get to be there? Because when you are very low, it's very hard to see you becoming the person you want. It seems like I'll never be able to do it. And they asked me some, I was through some discussions and interviews, and I was asked, how did you do it as a young person? And my answer was, and I say this is quite helpful, I'm always looking and projecting my future self. I'm always looking at what I want to be in the future. And I go and get in touch with my future version. How? I contact people. I make changes. I get to be involved with future things that will bring me closer to my future self. I'm not embarrassed. So as a teenager, I reached out. I wanted to be like my models. So I would say, choose healthy, beautiful models and say, I want to be like that. And then what happens? You start, your brain will start focusing more and more. It's not magic how it happens. I know there is the universal law, that you attract what you look for, but how actually it happens, your brain will start looking more and more after those things. And you'll, of course, naturally you'll attract them.
So if people were to have an image in their head of somebody they admire, somebody that's healthy, that they would like to be like, that would be a fantastic beginning, because it's setting the seed with their unconscious mind of how they want to be in the future, and their unconscious mind will help them get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But do it regularly. And then once you reach that level, find another one. And that will make you get closer and closer to your future self. You'll create in the present your future self, because you'll call it, you'll manifest it. That's how it happens. It's not magic. The brain will actually start looking for those and make connections. We have billions of neurons which are actually in charge to make connections for you. This is not magic.
Yeah. And that part of your brain will help you get there. Yeah, we like that.
We do.
Oh gosh, well, thank you, Mia. This has been so insightful for people.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and I really hope it will help people.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So people can go and now create their image of who they would like to be in their future and see it in their mind's eye.
Yes, they can, and they can put anything in that image. They can put smells, they can put lights, they can put places.
As much detail as possible.
Yes. That's a creative work.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Mia. Thank you to everybody for listening to Bulimia Sucks today. And join us again on the next episode. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Apple iTunes so you never miss an episode. Plus, if you hadn't already heard about it, my book, Bulimia Sucks, is out on Amazon. So go and grab yourself a copy and learn different techniques to help you to begin to break through your painful behaviors, because there's lots of different techniques in there to help you visualize your future. And before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or iTunes or Google Podcasts or wherever you listen. And make sure you come and join our Facebook group, Bulimia Sucks, if you haven't already, to connect with us all, because we'd love to bond and beyond with you there. So thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.